My phone buzzed right in the middle of my sister's birthday celebration. Music, laughter, glasses clinking, and then my wife's name flashed on screen. "Hey babe, what's up?" I said, cradling our daughter in one arm. Her voice didn't match the mood. It was low, urgent. "Where are you?" "At my sister's," I replied. "We just sat down." "Why?" Then she screamed. "Grab our daughter and run from there. Now." I stood frozen. Everything around me blurred. "Run, James. Don't ask questions. Just go. Get her and leave." Her voice cracked into static, but the terror in her tone stayed with me. I didn't wait. I didn't say goodbye. I scooped up Ava, my 6-year-old, who was happily dipping her fries in ketchup, and I bolted for the front door. No shoes. No jackets. No answers. My sister shouted behind me, confused, "James? What's going on?" I ignored her. I just ran to the car with Ava clutched tightly in my arms, her tiny hands wrapped around my neck. I got to the driveway, breath heavy, and reached for the handle, but the car door was already open. That's when I noticed the faint blinking light on the driver's seat. A tiny blinking red light. I stepped back, heart pounding in my ears, shielding Ava's body with mine. Then a voice called from behind me. A voice I hadn't heard in years. "Still as sharp as ever, James? But not fast enough." I spun around slowly. And standing in the dark near the hedge was my wife's brother. The one we buried 5 years ago. Alive. Smiling. And holding a remote in his hand. I stared at him like I was seeing a ghost. Because I was... "Marcus?" I whispered. He stepped out from the shadows, clean-shaven, alive, very much not buried in the casket I helped carry 5 years ago. Ava clutched me tighter, burying her face into my chest. "Relax," he said coolly. "The kid's not in danger. Yet." I wanted to ask 100 questions, but the beeping light on the driver's seat was still blinking. My instinct screamed louder than my curiosity. I took another step back, away from the car. "That's smart," he nodded. "You always were the careful one. Where the hell have you been?" I snapped. He smirked. "Hiding from people who wanted me dead. People I thought were strangers, until I found out my own sister was part of it." His voice cracked a little. "Emily signed the papers, James. She let them take everything." "What papers?" I asked, my voice trembling now. He took a small black phone from his coat and tapped it. A video began playing. My wife, in a candlelit restaurant, laughing, smiling, signing something, sitting across from a man I recognized, my firm's competitor. "I faked my death to protect her," Marcus said bitterly. "But she sold me out. For money. She used me, and now she's using you." Ava whimpered. I hushed her gently, heart thundering in my chest. "What was in the car?" I asked. He looked me straight in the eye. "A motion-triggered device. Set to explode when the driver's seat shifts weight. It would have looked like an accident. Clean. Tragic. Newsworthy." I nearly vomited. "She knew you'd use that car. That's why she waited to call until you were in it." And then he handed me a small envelope. "What's this?" "Your daughter's future. And your ticket out of this. But you only get one shot, James." Inside the envelope, a USB. Labeled, "Do not watch with Emily." Then he said, "By tonight they'll realize you're alive. And when they do," he looked toward the road, "you'll see how far your wife is willing to go to make sure you're not." I barely made it back home before midnight. Emily was in bed, pretending to be asleep, or maybe she actually was. Either way, I didn't wake her. I locked myself in the guest room, turned off the Wi-Fi, and pulled the curtains tight. Ava was safe, tucked in beside me, her little fingers curled around my shirt. With shaking hands, I inserted the USB into my old laptop. The folder was titled, "Michael's Last Gift." Inside were videos, documents, screenshots, and a 10-minute recording labeled, "Watch First." Alone. It was Marcus sitting in what looked like a motel room. His voice was calm, but I could see it in his eyes, rage, betrayal, pain. "James," he began. "If you're seeing this, then I'm already dead, again, or they failed. Either way, you deserve the truth." What followed shattered every illusion I had. Emily had been siphoning company funds through a shell firm, under my name. The accidental overdrafts, the missing tax forms, the shady overseas accounts? All orchestrated. And the man she was working with? My firm's largest rival. Marcus had discovered it a year before his death. When he confronted her, she panicked, spun a lie about abuse, got a restraining order, and disappeared him with a fake overdose. The entire funeral had been staged. And me? I was just next in line. The clueless husband. The final pawn. He ended the video with, "James, I kept quiet to protect you. But now, you have to protect yourself." And Ava. I sat there, heart numb, blood boiling, staring at the final folder. Labeled, Plan B, for when she strikes. At that moment, I heard the sound of footsteps outside the room. Slow, soft, then a knock. "James?" Emily's voice was too sweet, too timed. "Why are you sleeping in the guest room?" I closed the laptop slowly, hiding the screen with my hand. "Just couldn't sleep," I called out, forcing a yawn. "Come to bed," she said, her voice like honey over poison. "I miss you." Through the door, I stared at her shadow. I now knew who she really was. But she didn't know that I wasn't her victim anymore. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of fear, but clarity. Everything Marcus warned me about was real. My wife, the woman I had kissed every morning, was quietly threading the rope to hang me with. And now she was tightening the noose. But instead of pulling away, I leaned into the performance. At breakfast, I made her tea, chamomile just how she liked it. "I'm sorry for being distant," I said. "Work's been rough." She smiled. "I understand. I know how stressed you've been." What? I noticed her phone screen that morning. A message flashed before she could lock it. "He suspects nothing. Soon." My chest tightened. But I laughed and said, "Hey, wanna do dinner tonight?" She blinked, surprised. "Sure. That'd be nice." She thought she still had control. Perfect. That afternoon, I met Marcus's lawyer again. I showed him the files. His eyes widened. This is enough to bury her," he muttered. I shook my head. "I don't want to bury her." I paused. "I want her to bury herself." He leaned back. "You want to bait her?" I nodded. "She's already making a move. I'll let her." Back home, I played the loving husband role to perfection. Candlelit dinner. A toast to new beginnings. Emily's eyes sparkled, not with love but victory. She believed I had given up. That I was broken. She had no idea I'd already rerouted the bank accounts, locked down Ava's guardianship, and forwarded every digital trace of her scheme to my private legal team. That night, I watched her sleep. She mumbled in her dreams something about the wire, "Not yet." I whispered back, barely audible, "Keep going." Because now, every step she took would tighten the trap. And the best part? She still believed I was the fool. 2 days later, Emily sent me a message. Running to the bank. "Can you pick up Ava from school today?" I replied instantly. Of course. She didn't know I was already parked outside the bank. She stepped out of the building smiling, phone to her ear, giggling. With Marcus's video files, I knew her lover's voice. And now I had a full recording of her slipping up in public. Again. I followed at a distance as she drove to a side street and handed an envelope to a man in a gray hoodie. They didn't kiss. Too smart for that. But the man slid his hand around her waist. Familiar. Back home, I reviewed the bank transaction alerts. She just attempted to transfer $150,000. Too bad the accounts were now mirrored to an isolated legal vault I had created last week. Every cent she moved triggered a silent flag. And now I had legal proof of fraud. Not just intent. Still, I said nothing. That night, I cooked her favorite pasta. She leaned in, kissed my cheek. "Thanks, babe." "Of course," I said. "You're everything to me." She didn't see the fire in my eyes. The next day, I asked our nanny to stay overnight. Just in case, I said, Emily might be traveling soon. When I returned from work, Emily was already packing a suitcase. She turned and froze. I got invited to a last-minute wellness retreat. Spa weekend. You know how it is. I smiled warmly. Sounds lovely. Take all the time you need. She kissed me and left. An hour later, I tracked her phone to a private Airbnb, where Mr. Gray Hoodie had just arrived. I didn't confront them. Not yet. Instead, I forwarded everything, the transfer, the footage, the recorded phone call, to the lawyer. With one message. Time to begin. By Monday, my lawyer had filed for emergency financial restraint on all joint assets. Emily had no idea yet. She returned from her retreat, glowing. "I feel so refreshed," she said, sliding her arms around my neck. "We should do something together next time." I smiled and nodded. Absolutely. I made her coffee just the way she liked it, oat milk, 2 sugars, hint of cinnamon. She didn't notice the bank card in her purse was now frozen, or that the Tesla key no longer worked, or that the nanny was now under contract with my name only. Over the next 3 days, I played the perfect husband. While behind the scenes, the court quietly approved my petition. Emily was served at 6:02 p.m. on Thursday, as she was headed to another Pilates session. She burst into the house, throwing papers on the floor. "You blindsided me? Froze everything. Why are you doing this?" I calmly stood. "Because this house was bought under my trust. The bank accounts you siphoned from? Legally shielded. The car? What? And Ava? She stays with me until court says otherwise." She tried to scream, but I spoke first. "Before you embarrass yourself further, you might want to check your phone." She did. The video from the camera in Marcus's office was now in her inbox. She dropped her phone. "Marcus is nothing. It was just a phase." "No," I interrupted. "It was a betrayal. And now it's evidence." She took a step forward, desperate. "I made a mistake. You're blowing this out of..." "You sold me for a fantasy," I said. "Now go live in it." That night she didn't sleep at home. But it wasn't over yet. Because Marcus had no idea his world was next. And I knew exactly how to burn it down. The first time I met Marcus face to face, he didn't recognize me. It was a quiet art gallery opening downtown. I stood beside him, sipping wine, listening to him boast about a new investment opportunity with a connected investor. The man he didn't know was me. The following morning, my team froze Marcus's accounts with a single legal motion, using the wire transfer receipts he'd sent to Emily from his business account as evidence of marital fraud. That same day, a letter arrived at his office from the IRS. It wasn't random. I'd submitted a quiet whistleblower report. It turns out Marcus hadn't paid taxes on several offshore gains. His arrogance left breadcrumbs everywhere. I watched him unravel from a distance. First, the frozen assets. Then the surprise audit. Then his luxury condo association evicted him. Turns out the apartment was leased in Emily's name. I timed it perfectly. Because that night, Emily came crawling back to my door. "I have nowhere else to go," she said. I looked at her. Makeup smudged. Designer heels in her hand. Her voice trembling. "Marcus disappeared. He blocked me. I'm being evicted. Please." I held the door slightly open, just enough to look her in the eye. "Ava's asleep upstairs. I won't wake her. James, please." I leaned in, my voice barely above a whisper. "You once said Marcus didn't care about money. Funny, it's the one thing he chased harder than you." I closed the door. But I wasn't done. The final move would be made at Ava's school, where I'd invited Marcus, Emily, and someone else. Someone neither of them expected to see. And what happened next was caught on camera. The auditorium was packed for Ava's school talent show. I sat in the back row, quiet, unnoticed, just another proud father. Marcus arrived late, sweaty, in a cheap blazer. Emily followed, eyes darting, cheeks hollow from sleepless nights. They didn't notice the third invitee walk in. Her name was Meredith Langford, lead IRS investigator. I'd given her front row seats. As Ava stepped on stage with her violin, the room went still. Her hands trembled slightly before she played the first note. And then clarity. She played a haunting, beautiful piece I hadn't heard in years. The same one Emily mocked her for loving. The same one Marcus once called pathetic. When Ava finished, the crowd erupted. Except Marcus, who leaned toward me in confusion. She's really good." I turned to him slowly. "I know. I paid for every lesson." That's when Meredith approached him. "Mr. Blake? You'll need to come with me." Emily bolted up. "What is this?" "The result of someone recording your husband's confession to tax fraud. Among other things. You can't do this." "Oh, we already did." As they dragged Marcus down the aisle, Emily looked at me, her face crumbling. "This was you?" I nodded once. "Why?" I reached into my coat and pulled out the last piece, a white envelope. Inside, photos, emails, texts, proof of everything. Because Ava deserved better than a mother who used her as a bargaining chip. And I deserved better than silence. I stood. This isn't revenge. It's closure. Emily looked down. She didn't speak. I walked out before they took Marcus away. Ava ran into my arms backstage. "Was I good dad?" "You were perfect." We drove home in quiet peace, her violin resting in the back seat. When we arrived, she handed me a note. "Mom gave this to me earlier. Said I'd understand when I was older." I opened it. It was blank, except one line. "I underestimated you." I smiled. That was the last thing I ever heard from Emily. And I was okay with that.